Have you ever met anybody who was prepared for everything and they were just always on time, maybe even ahead of time? I wish I was one of those people that was more prompt. Paulette Rush was a part of a congregation that I served a number of years ago. Paulette spends a good bit of her year getting ready for this thing that I lovingly call the Hippie Festival down in Bluegrass Land, Winfield, Kansas. I think my family calls it the Bluegrass Festival. I call it the Hippie Fest. I know that Paulette spends a whole lot of time getting ready, being prepared to get contracts out for all of those musicians. I know that she spends a lot of time preparing. Her family does too. Her husband's very prepared. He came to get me to go for the walk to Emmaus. He was about 10 minutes early, and I was still packing my bag. Alan comes by it naturally. I think his mother, Olive, whom also was in the congregation, Olive was always prepared. Alan went to see her one day. He was going to take her out. They were going to take care of something, maybe a doctor's visit, I don't know. He knocked on the door, and then he went right on in. He said, Mom, are you ready? And she looked over her glasses, over her reading book, which was a devotional, and she said, Of course I am. I'm always ready. You have met people who are always ready. I have too. Maybe you want to be even more ready than you presently are. Some of us are in the throes of buying all the supplies for school, and we feel like we're getting ready, or maybe not quite ready yet. This passage from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 12 is really for us, for you. Let yourself be immersed in this moment. Refresh my memory and yours about what's going on in the life of the Messiah at this time. He's talking about some things that may not be as pertinent to us as they were to them. He's talking about having a place where your treasure is stored, depositing those things which you know you want, you know you need, and yet the thief may come during the night, or a moth might destroy or consume what your treasure is. The Messiah is inviting us, you and I, as he was his first faith followers, to begin investing and putting those things that are important, the important things, not the urgent. The urgencies are always going to be there, but to deposit the important things where our hearts will be found. He suggests that that might not be a purse that would be coming undone. He suggests that that might be in the kingdom of God, where moth will not consume, rust will not destroy. I would encourage you to take heed and listen carefully to what the Messiah is asking us to do. There are a couple of phrases or concepts that are not new to us, yet they're old probably, and we don't really pay attention to them anymore. Not many of us, please don't raise your hand necessarily, but not many of us have lamps with oil and wicks in them burning brightly in our homes. Not unless you're Tom Bodett from Motel 6. And about 26 years ago, I think he said, we'll keep the light on for you. Remember him? Unless you're Motel 6, you probably don't have a wick that's burning brightly. So what is a wick burning brightly all about? Well, there was a tradition, a custom that was very relevant in that era and may have some relevancy for you and me. That custom was being prepared for when the master would return. Now, there was a custom that the master would go away to some party. The scripture passage says maybe it was a bridal party, a wedding party. So the master is gone, and those who are left at home, and I think my grandmother used to say, we'll keep the home fires burning. Remember that phrase from a few years back? There were people that were left back home while others went out to the gathering, to the party, to the moment. There were people back home making sure that all was ready so that thief would not come in, so that rust would not destroy, nor a moth. There were people that were left behind. And these people that were left behind would be trimming the wick, would be making sure that the light was on. For when the master would return, there would need to be light. There would need to be a way into the home. Those who were left back home more than likely were slaves of the master, were servants of the master, were employed by the master. The allegory might be pretty clear then for us, and if it is very clear to you, let me be just a little bit redundant and say, you might be the servant and the master might be God, waiting for God to return in your life. And maybe you've already been with God all this time, and maybe God has not left you, and maybe you don't find yourself in this particular parable, in this particular story. But there are many from this community of faith and many from this community, many from our world who have gone away, who are not trimming the wick for the master's return. You and I are encouraged to trim the wick. But then there's another phrase that may be somewhat old or archaic. Gird yourself, one version of the passage says. Another one that I read, dress yourself, so that when the master is with you, you are ready. Some of us understand that girding ourselves, dressing ourselves, is necessary when we greet individuals. I've been a part of various social activities where there was like a dress code where you had to wear certain clothing in order for you to be admitted. I know that one of the pastors that I worked under preached a sermon, and this is a long time ago. It was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and his name is Muzon Biggs, pastor of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. And Muzon's printed sermon title that was in the Tulsa World was "No Shirt, No Shoes, No Service." Now, that had to do with a story that he was going to tell in the sermon about dressing appropriately to go into a restaurant. Well, the Tulsa World got a hold of that, and they said, apparently, you have to dress a certain way to go to this church. You have to have a shirt on, shoes on, in order for you to go to worship. It created quite a stir between First Methodist Church, just a couple blocks away, and Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. The author of the book of Luke is inviting us to hear clearly that there are times for us to be dressed, prepared, to have our wicks burning, to be ready for when the master returns. What does readiness look like? The author of the Gospel of Luke is inviting us to say, it looks like that. It looks like having your wicks trimmed. It looks like being girded. Then the next sort of question that might pop up in this procedure for searching the truth: what is the business of being ready? I mean, exactly what are we to be doing? The gospel writer is fairly clear on that as well. He's inviting us to consider being ready. The business of being ready is doing and being and living like the Messiah. Being, if you will, Christ-like. Notice I did not say being Christ. One of our Protestant reformers once said, the business of every Christian is to be little Christs in the world. He didn't say with a big C, he said with a little c. And he really meant, this reformer did some 500 years ago, meant what it would be like when we all participate in the nature of being like Christ. So, what is Christ like? What does it mean to be like Christ? Multiple authors through the years have written books, treatises, articles about what it might be like to live like Christ. Not very long ago, I invited you to be thinking, as we all did, about that very first wrist bracelet that we once wore, those plastic ones like this one. This is not it, but this is like it. It said on the front part of it, it said WWJD. Do you remember getting those? Those were the very first wristbands. I loved them. I'd pop it. I gave it away. I got more, and I gave them away. Now wristbands are everywhere, and they're all sorts of colors. WWJD. What would Jesus do? To explore for yourself and for myself, for this church, what would Jesus do? Might employ a bit of exploring what it is that we do already. And that may help us define what would Jesus do. Some of the things that I know we do, we take very good care of each other. We have a lot of different activities that help us. It's kind of that homogeneous lot that we are. There's pastoral care. There's moments of small group building. There's moments of nurturing ourselves. There's moments where we do this pretty good, pretty well. We are getting better about those kind of things. What would Jesus do? Jesus might open the doors so that others would come in. Jesus might say, it's okay, whoever you are, to come in these doors. What does readiness look like? Trimming the wicks, getting ourselves dressed. What is the business of readiness? The business of readiness might be engaging ourselves in those things which are a part of kingdom building, of kingdom growing. You and I have this opportunity. It's a very rare opportunity. It doesn't come around very often. It's kind of like comets and being the sky at night. This is a rare opportunity, friends. 1 week from today, 1 week, let's see, that's 7 days. 7 days from today, something brand new is starting. You may want to be a part of it. You may say, it's not for me. It's wild, crazy music. It's called contemporary music. You know, I'm getting old, and so that's the stuff my kids listen to. It's not the stuff I listen to. Of course, when I said that to my dad way back, that he was old, he said, "This too, Jerry, will come back to haunt you." It probably is right now. You may not be turned on by contemporary Christian music. You, however, are a part of a community of faith that is offering contemporary music. Not here in the sanctuary, not at 10:45. Don't get all excited. At 7 minutes after 7, every Sunday evening up at our United Methodist Campus Ministry Center, 6th and Elm, there will be a contemporary worship service. Now, what if I want to go to that and go to traditional service? Of course you can. What if I just want to stick my big toe in that and see if I like it or not? Of course you can. What if I want to go every week? Of course you can. This is a new opportunity. This is, I believe, what the Gospel of Luke is asking us to engage ourselves in. That which is growing, going, moving forward. Okay, worship aside, I can only get so much of that. What about my study? What about my soul? What about the things that are really important to me, like grandchildren and other things? Have I got a deal for you? Brand new, brand spanking new. September the 7th, we launch a brand new thing. It's called Seasons of Life. You can be engaged in a part of a small group. Not 35, not 135, probably less than 8. 8 or so. John Wesley once said, a small group is about 8 people big, where you can really be sharing with each other in very concrete, intimate ways, knowing who you are and knowing who the other is. Do you yearn for somebody knowing who you are? Do you anticipate knowing somebody else in faith? I do. I yearn for those kind of things. This is that opportunity for you. These are 2 simple ways. A third one that I'm going to mention is a little more difficult for some of us, me included. It's being a part of our chancel choir. Mr. Johnny Matlock shares with me just this last weekend, right away, like a couple of days ago, that he is going to be starting chancel choir rehearsals come August 21st. And in just a moment, you are going to, with this entire congregation, sing a closing hymn. So, I'm not a very good singer, preacher, but I have pretty good ears, and the person in front of me or behind me has a great voice. Maybe you could encourage them to become a part of the chancel choir or any of the music ministries of the church. Maybe you will want to be a part of the music ministries of the church. These are all very real ways that Luke chapter 12 fits who you are. You look ready. Are you?